Hey guys, welcome back. Joe here again from ScaleFreak.com, coming to bring you another part in the video series for the Axial SCX10 II. This is an amazing kit, guys. If you've watched the other videos so far, you'll find out that I am totally geeking out with how well they built this thing, man. This thing is absolutely phenomenal. With this one here, we're going to go into Bag C, which is Bag C for the metals, and Bag 2 for the plastics, which is building the shocks. Now, I've done a whole bunch of videos on shocks before. I don't think I need to go too in-depth with this one, but I do want to put it together because there are a couple minor differences. Nothing too significant, but stuff that I think I should at least still touch on. Now, again, I told you before how a lot of people sleep on these shocks. These things are absolutely phenomenal. The Icon Dynamics shocks that they put in these things are unreal. Just what a great shock from a factory kit. And if you really want to make these shocks something that is just unbelievable, CBRC Fab sells a shock relocation keys. You can tune them out. They also sell link relocation kits. It's really just going to wake your truck up. It just, God, I can't even explain it. It just turns these things indestructible. So listen, we're going to build the shocks, and again, there's not a whole lot that's too much different, but still some tips that I want to discuss. Number one of the greatest things that you can use when you're building shocks is green slime. Green slime, they call it from Team Associated. It is, I don't remember the part number, guys, I'm sorry, ASC1022, I think is what it is. This one here, because I couldn't find the Team Associated stuff, is the Losi Team, the Team Losi Racing shock O-ring grease. It's still green slime, same consistency, same everything. TLR77002 was able to pick it up, so that's what I'm using. But the idea behind this is this does not necessarily get eaten down by shock oil, so it helps keep stuff from slipping past the seals, helps keep stuff better, more longer. Does that make any sense? Better, more, longer. Also, in the instruction book, it does call for 30 weight oil, which the kit comes with. It actually gives you probably enough oil to do your shocks, oh God, 20 times? Tons of oil. But for me, this one here, the way I run the truck, it's going to be 10 weight. Team Associated, 10 weight oil. I run it differently. Maybe try the 30 and see what happens for you and then make your adjustments from there. Some people go thicker, some people go lighter. Completely your prerogative, completely what's going to work for you. So first, let's get to the build. Now, you are, of course, going to be grabbing a bunch of different things from some plastics. I do want to note, these will be single spring shocks. And I know that there have been some word online about, hey, single spring shocks, I'm not going to be able to tune that as well. Yeah, okay, take it for what it is. Single spring shocks, I've always found to be my cup of tea. Funny enough, all my SCX10s run dual spring. Okay, shut up, Joe. So you'll notice also with it, when you are building this thing, you'll notice that the parts in here look like it is for a double spring setup. So this is just an original parts tree off of a different setup. So no need to get butthurt about it. You will find a bunch of extra parts on here throughout the kit. Parts trees that, and this is through everything, parts trees that worked for something else and they still needed parts off of it. So it was easier just to reprint it and send it out. So when you're building, number one, same thing I always, God, I can't stress this enough. This is using E-clips. These things are my nightmare. This little, these cow RC mats are awesome for not losing parts. But if you don't have nails, sometimes it's difficult to pick these little things up. So keep a work on it. These little E-clips are my bane of my existence. I understand what their purpose is, and I understand how it's a cost-effective solution. And I can also tell you that the alternative of using the screw to lock the piston down, sometimes that breaks and you ruin your whole shock. So let's go with this for now. Now, same setup as before. You've got the shock, the piston, the shock shaft. It is not nitride coated on this one. I don't think it has to be, guys. We're running scale stuff. It's not high performance racing. So one of the things that I cannot stress enough is how to handle these E-clips when you are putting them on the shocks. These things have a nasty habit of going somewhere you don't want them to be. So hold on a sec. I'm going to use a tip that a viewer gave me in the past. Thank you very much, viewer. I apologize that I do not remember your name at this moment. Thank you very much for this tip. So again, what I'm going to do is you've got to be able to get this onto there, and you're going to use a set of pliers. But the problem is if you make an error, this will shoot off somewhere in your house or in your workbench or in your garage, never to be found again. This is one of those tiny little parts that costs absolutely nothing, but unless you've got some spares sitting around, it's an everything part. So what my viewer had suggested is put it inside a plastic bag, like this, and if that part fires off, guess what? You know where it is. Unfortunately for me, I did pick the smallest plastic bag I could find. Damn these big hands. So throw this in here, clip it down, take special care with it, and screw it up a couple times. Okay, that's what the tip is. I'm going to take my chance at losing the part because I can't fit my hands in that bag. See you later, bag. Cross your fingers, guys. If I took a magnet to this garage, there's probably 24 of these things on the floor. But I can't... Okay, got that one's in. Thank God. There's probably 24 of these things on the floor in the garage. I do keep some spares around because I've lost so many of them. But just for your purposes, maybe get a freezer bag or something like that. So, okay, piston goes on. One thing you'll notice about these pistons is they are notched out on the side. So instead of having piston holes, it's still going to cause some disturbance in the force, aka the shock fluid. But that's exactly what it's meant to do. So I like the way the setup is. You will have to make sure that you get your hobby knife and shave off the burr, because the burr on this thing will make it a little bit larger than the shock piston or than the shock body. So just make sure it will fit in without any real concern. I can see that this one here, I'm going to have to shave down a little bit more, but let me just get this other E-clip on first. So grab it, pick it up to the best of your ability off of a magnetic pit mat. Oh, missed it. Get over. Okay. So then get it fit on there real nice. Dingos. Bing. Come on. Seriously? I hope you guys are enjoying this pain and suffering that I go through to build trucks for you. Yeah, right. What a victim. Okay, so... Oh, come on! Heath, your products are awesome. I can't lose this E-clip to save my life. I also can't pick it up. Okay, here we go. So on there like that. And then I'm going to be super careful with this one because this one is... Oh, come on, dude. Oh, I got it. Ha! First try. Sucker! All right. It didn't fly away from me. I do not have to postpone the video to sweep the floor. All right, so again, to go through the burrs real quick, you just want to make sure that this will flow in and out of here, no problem. Just kind of test fit it. No, it is way too stiff. So that tells me that I need to take the hobby knife and get that shaved down a little bit more. The only thing I don't like about how this piston is designed is how it attaches to the parts tree. It sucks, it is what it is, but blah, blah, blah. Just shave that off a little bit. Get any extra plastic off. With the scaler, if you accidentally, oh, that's perfect. If you accidentally take too much plastic off, it's not going to make that much of a difference. We are not high-speed racing. We're not trying to shave off tenths of a second. So if you make an error, please just make sure the error is not you stabbing a hobby knife through your finger. I've done it. It sucks. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I've actually filleted my entire finger. Thank you for your concern. So in the end, we're going to grab this, and this is what I do with the shock oil, or the green slime. So first, I do these. Put this in here, in the end, goop it up really nice. For the record, I am about to make a big mess, but that's how I like it. So again, this little bad boy is going to go in here, and you know what? Maybe if you feel like it, a little bit of mousse lick. Boom, like that. Doesn't hurt. Okay, jam that sucker in there. Ta-da, see how nice and slidey that is? Please make sure you have a rag nearby because this is where stuff gets real. And ta-da. So like that. Now, what we're going to do is build what is technically called the cartridge. So O-ring, small spacer, O-ring, like that. This is what is going to make sure that shock fluid does not exit the body and flow down the shaft. 2 O-rings and a spacer to hold them apart. Again, we're making a mess here, so goop them up. Don't be afraid, guys. You can get this stuff. It's not that expensive. And then slam that sucker in there. This will make a mess. Again, if you're not making a mess, you're not doing it right. Ta-da, there's that. So, of course, I'm going to grab the bottom of the shock cap. There's no seals or anything on this part. It actually is the O-ring that seals it up itself. And I screw that little bad boy on. So this means now, ta-da, moving the shock back and forth, make sure it flows really, really well. And then, of course, you're going to make it so that everything is working really, really nice. Ta-da, I'm in love with this. This is great. And then what we're going to do is we are going to get the preload spacer and get that bad boy on there, just like so. Gives you something easier to hang on to. So just like that. Now again, for shock oil, oh, let me point this part out too, guys. So with this one here, we are going to use the faux reservoir tip. That's right, the fake tip. This is just, it's all it is. I'm going to put a sticker on here later. I'm not going to do it right now. Find your little tiny screw that comes with it. Find your 1.5. Get it on there real nice. Put this bad boy in here, just like so, and screw it in. You can do this first or you can do it later. You take your pick as to when you want to do it. I'm going to do it now because I usually use this to crank the shock cap down. Ta-da! Done. So that's on there. Ta-da! It looks neat on your truck. You take your pick. It comes with the cap. If you look here, oh, there, other plastic tree. It comes with a cap with or without that. So you get to select what you want to do. Okay, this is almost done, actually, I should say. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little tiny bit of this inside here because there is a groove in the top of this thing. I'm actually going to use the hobby knife to kind of smear that around a little bit. Ta-da! And just because I can, because I've made a mess already, this is the little rubber that's going to go inside the top of the shock cap. I'm going to mess that up too. So just smear it all around, just like that. Now this in the top, I was almost going to say use the hobby knife to help it in, but don't do that because you'll cut the ring and good for you. I don't want to give you that advice. Use the end of your 2mm. It's not sharp. And that will go in there real nice, just like that. Get it in that groove, tuck it in as best as you can. The better job you do at doing this now, the better this thing's going to hold your shock fluid for hours and hours and hours of adventure. So boom, that's done. Now what we're going to do, ta-da, get this on here. Now again, 10 weight is the weight that I'm using for this one. 1 second here. So put the lid back on. This is what I like about the Team Associated ones. This cap, such a good setup. And just for the record, 10 weight oil is basically like spitting in your shocks. Maybe even a little bit less than spit, but it's way more sanitary. So here's the shock. Put it in. Put it right to the top. And then what you're going to do is just slowly compress and decompress. The idea behind that is you're making sure there's no extra air in it. Now, when you read the instructions are going to call for you to hold it all the way to the bottom and put the cap on. But I don't do it that way because I build my shocks a little bit differently. What I'm going to do is put it all the way to the top, just like so. Let the shock oil leak all over the place, just like that. Grab the cap and put it on. Ta-da! Done. So now what I'm going to get is nice setup like that without stressing, without adding rebound. Well, that much. Rebound is basically when you compress the shock and you let go, it's how much the shock comes back. So watch. This is rebound. Oh, rebound's gone. Perfect. Crank it down. So that's it. That's how the shock works. Yes! I like when they get built right the first time. So use the cloth, wipe it off, real nice. Now, here's a subjective part of the build. Some people like this and some people do not like this. So you take your pick as to what is going to work for you. Now, number one, this end right here, when you screw it onto the bottom of this, will go on just enough that if this shock compresses completely, well, maybe not quite. It will almost make contact with the shock. You're going to have a little bit of space that if you hit something hard enough, you will compress this shock and possibly pop this cap off. I don't think the scalers are going to have that much of a concern with it, but you need to know that you have options. Here's a couple different things that I've done in the past when it comes to building my shocks. Number one, you will see on this tree right here that you do get these extra big tall things. The instructions do call for you to use these. What they do is they go on the shaft like this, so that when you put the end, when you put the end on here, it works as a stopper so that you cannot fully compress that shock, so that you cannot compress it enough that the shock piston is going to smash into the cap. That's how we're going to set it up, because, I mean, it's nice to limit the suspension a little bit. Now, what I've also done in the past was cut that in half. Cut it in half to be able to get the absolute maximum amount of shock travel with very, very little limitation. Nothing wrong with it, but if you don't cut all four pieces exactly the same, then who am I kidding? It's scale, man. There's going to be differences. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. If we were racing, yeah, everything has got to be dialed 100%, but we're not racing. This is scale truck stuff. If you make a mistake, cool, move on. So boom, just like that. Now, one more thing to note is, again, we are back to using, as I mentioned before, a one spring setup. Now, what's neat about this is Axial is not just sending you 4 of the exact same spring and saying, hey, good luck to y'all. What they're doing is they're sending you 2 different springs. The ones for the front, the yellow band, and you'll actually see the band up on top of here. These things here, the book tells me, is 2.63 pounds per inch of this little bad boy, and it's actually quite stiff. Good on you. The rear is a white band, so you'll see up on the top, white band. This is 1.13 pounds per inch. So what this is doing is effectively the front spring rate is more than twice the spring rate of the one in the rear. Very interesting. I'm actually looking forward to see what change this is going to make. So we're going to call this Mr. Front Shock. And we're going to put the yellow band on Mr. Front Shock like that. And we're going to, of course, grab our spring retainer and compress the spring, slap that bad boy on, and ta-da, we have spring, just like so. Beautiful. Now, the spring rate, of course, is going to give you how quickly the shock is going to compress, and the purpose of the oil on the inside is to give it some kind of disturbance, some kind of viscosity, some kind of resistance against the pull. Otherwise, when you come off a bump with no shock oil, it literally just spring like that. But at least with this, it adds some kind of dampening to it. The thicker the oil, the harder the dampening, the longer it takes to make its transition. The lighter the oil, again, you might as well spit in your shock. But at least you got something in there. Now, of course, one thing I always recommend, because you see how even at full extension, this is moving around. Yeah, these are very easy to lose on the trail. So I always recommend adding just a little bit of preload, just enough to snug up the shock. Now, again, preload later once you get this on your truck. If your truck's very heavy and your shock's already half down, you just add some preload to stiffen it back up again. It will change your spring rate. Try to measure this and make sure it's consistent across all 4 shocks. Do your best to get your shocks as consistent as possible. Measure twice, cut once. Remember, go with your shocks, measure everything, make them as consistent as possible for best case scenario. But in the end, it's scale. Do what you want. Of course, some of the extra, pop the the capture ball in there, the ball in there, rock and roll. This is going to get attached to your truck and eventually go on to the axle. Sweet little gig, eh? So that's it for this one. I mean, I'm going to build the other 3 off camera. There's no need to do all 4 on camera. You will fall asleep watching me do that. Make sure you put your oil away. If you take a 10 weight and you don't put the stopper back in and you put this back in the drawer, don't be surprised when later on you open it up and all your tools are covered in oil. It happens. Believe me, I've had to replace whole pit boxes. So that's it for the open bag C, or the bag C, I should say, with the parts tree 2 of the shocks. You're going to be building 4 of these things, and the neat thing with scale stuff is that you'll pretty much build them once or twice in the lifetime of your truck as long as you do it correctly. And I cannot stress how invaluable of a tool shock grease can be. Go buy some. Oh, sorry, this guy's too. Team STRC shock pliers. I forgot about that. What an awesome way to grab a hold of the shock shaft to be able to turn the ends on without damaging the shock shaft. If you damage your shock shaft, the chances of it cutting your rings up, I would say it's a high probability, but I would say it's mostly a certainty. You're going to destroy your stuff. So get yourself one of these, Team STRC. I've had this one now for about 5 years, and I have no need to replace it. And from the racing world, I was constantly building shocks multiple times a day. Again, guys, thank you for watching. Please click on the comments field below if you've got experience of these single springs so far, and tell me what your thoughts are. Of course, click on the like, click on the subscribe, and share this throughout your community. Oh, and check out the information box below so you can find the link to the whole build series. I'm going to cover all the bags one by one. Peace, guys. Have yourself a great evening, and thank you very much for watching.